Welcome to the May session of the GETS Education program. We're going to start with a review of last month. The topic was transformation, how to work with GTA. We learned what the transformation charges were and what they buy, how the transformation charges are calculated for the GETS invoice, and how you partner with the SMO to meet your infrastructure and managed network service needs. Just a quick review of our GETS Education program. This month is the EUC and Service Desk, and next month, June 27th, we'll cover servers. So let's begin with the End User Computing and Service Desk review. So to ensure our common understanding, the learning objectives for this session will ensure that you understand End User Computing Service Desk services provided by GETS, understand the charges in a GETS invoice for End User Computing and Service Desk, know the primary processes and tools to manage an agency's usage of End User Computing and Service Desk. And if you're reviewing this today with the CRM, after this session, you'll be asked to complete an evaluation form demonstrating your knowledge of the material. We will be reviewing the evaluations, and if there's a lot of questions about one particular topic, we'll may put together another additional training session or add it to the curriculum. And then if there's a specific need for an agency, we'll schedule a one-on-one session to make sure that gets covered for you. We are committed to your success. So our agenda for today: better understanding your GETS End User Computing and Service Desk services, understand the charges, the resource units for End User Computing and the Service Desk, and knowing how to leverage primary processes and tools to better manage your usage of these services. But before we go much further, we need to look at some common terms. So we have a glossary here for End User Computing. First here is asset management, strategic processes for selecting, tracking, reporting, and disposing of tangible GETS equipment and property. End User Computing, we also call it EUC. It's the service tower that includes desktops, laptops, network printers, and common software, including Windows and MS Office. GSMART is an acronym for Global Systems Management Reporting Technology. It's a web-based GETS reporting tool that captures data from multiple sources, including the Actuate engine. This is where you're going to find your GETS invoice. GSMART Analytics is the improved web-based GETS reporting tool that captures data from multiple sources using the Cognos engine. Maximo is our data source for reporting EUC devices and other assets and tracking service requests. OrderNow is the GETS online service catalog. A resource unit, or we'll call it an RU, is a unit of measure for IT services provided by GETS. The Service Desk is a consolidated service desk. It's a single place to call to ask usage questions or to report problems with any GETS service. A service tower is a grouping of related resource units that covers the cost of a service, like End User Computing, Service Desk, voice. Service provider, of course, is GTA, Georgia Technology Authority, and service provider partners are the vendors who are part of the GETS contract. That's IBM, AT&T. Dell is a subcontractor of IBM. So let's look at understanding your GETS services. So what do we mean when we talk about the EUC tower? It is a group of resource units that recover all the charges for desktops, laptops, tablets, and network printers. In just a moment, we'll discuss each of these RUs in more detail. You have hardware service charges. The hardware service charge is not a lease. The agency pays a month-to-month service fee for the use of an End User Computing device. GTA owns the lease for the state of Georgia at the enterprise level. Remember, this is a consumption-based service. You do not have to hang onto a laptop for 3 years, as would be the refresh cycle for a laptop. If you're not using it, you can simply turn it in. The services that IBM and its subcontractors provide in this EUC tower include break-fix, endpoint management, including maintenance and the updating of Windows operating system and security software, and installation of hardware and software. We call those IMACs, which is short for install, move, add, or change. Now let's take a look at the service tower. Service desk tower. The service desk tower encapsulates services from IBM and AT&T. We have a single consolidated service desk. There's one number to call for 24/7 GETS infrastructure and managed network service needs, including GET service interruptions and incident reporting, inability to access the internet or a specific application, EUC service impairments, break fix, either your laptop or your telephone's not working, password resets, and also ID administration. This tower recovers the cost for operating the service desk. Now let's look at the GETS model. It is a paradigm shift. In 2009, the state moved away from buying and maintaining hardware to purchasing IT services. The consumption-based model is becoming a best practice in the private industry. We've moved from capital expenditures to a consumption services model. Agencies pay a monthly fee for hardware support, security, and disaster recovery. The agency owns consumption management. GTA provides transparency into the actual cost of services and also provides the training and tools that empower the agency to manage its consumption. The agency avoids costly investments in equipment that quickly become obsolete and the ongoing cost of IT support staff needed to maintain that equipment. Let's look at the effect of privatization on end-user computing and the service desk. Before privatization, each agency was responsible for its own inventory of devices. While some agencies had a good idea of what they had, many did not. And even those who did keep an inventory did not have access to a single statewide repository, so it was impossible for OPB to plan or forecast across the enterprise. You have all heard the stories. When privatization began in 2009, we found agencies who were still using machines that were ancient by technology standards. What's worse, they were running on Windows 95. That meant their machines couldn't be updated, and they were constantly battling viruses or other malware. Since 2009, desktops are replaced every 5 years and laptops every 3 years in the GETS program. Technical support is available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year by calling a single number. Over 33,000 computers are maintained across the state. Computer management software automatically downloads important updates for the Windows operating system and antivirus software. So, we hear this question from the agency sometimes. Why can't we go to a big box retailer and to buy computers? The answer goes back to the major shifts that occurred with the GETS model. Remember, the state moved away from owning and maintaining its own computers and instead began purchasing IT services. This allows us to focus on our core mission of providing services to Georgia's citizens instead of focusing on buying and maintaining computers. The agency must consider the total cost of ownership. The initial price of a computer may appear cheaper, but when you add in the ongoing cost of refresh, maintenance, support, security, and disaster recovery that is required to operate the computer in a safe and secure manner. Let's take a look at the resource units that cover the cost of these services. Comprehensive IT services that GETS agencies have received since 2009 do come at a price. As I mentioned earlier, the way that GTA recovers these costs is through the resource units. Each EUC device may generate up to 5 separate resource units to recover the cost of the tower. We will examine each of these RUs in the next few slides. So you have central campus or remote end-user computing device RU. You have the hardware service charge, and this is for GETS devices only, not legacy or agency-owned devices. You have the authorized device RU, the LAN attached device RU, and the LAN port RU. IMAC charges also apply for adds, moves, installs, and changes if a dead site visit is required. So why are IMAC separate and not built into these resource units? All of the executive branch GETS agencies were involved in the crafting of the RFP that led to the program we have today. The IMACs are kept separate, so one agency would not have to subsidize the IMACs of another agency. Some agencies make a lot of moves, and some are rather static. Agencies need to pay for what they're consuming, so we kept the IMAC charges separate. Now here's a slide from the Invoice Review GETS Ed session a couple months back. We included this to show you how the charges for the resource units related to end-user computing and service desk appear on the invoice. You can see you have your central campus charges for desktops and laptops. You see you have hardware service charges here as well. And you also see you have authorized device charge for the service desk tower. Central Campus RU, or the remote RU we'll see on the next slide, recovers the overall support costs for the device. That's ongoing maintenance of the Windows operating system, security software, and refresh of the device every 3 to 5 years. As you can see, we distinguish between devices that are within a 15-mile radius with those devices that are outside of that area because of the cost involved with providing support. This campus versus remote definition is reviewed annually. It is based on offices within the enterprise across all GETS agencies, but not by individual agency. It costs the vendor more money to service remote end-user computing devices because of the travel and the additional hours. It's important to remember that when a technician is deployed, it's considered a hard IMAC. So here's a list of the remote devices that are pretty much the same as you saw on the previous slide. The only difference is that these devices are outside the 15-mile central geographic radius that would have over 350 units in it. Now things start to get a little bit more complicated. The next RU, the hardware service charge, applies only to devices provided by GETS, not legacy devices or those that are agency owned. Agencies do not lease these devices. GTA owns the lease. The agency pays a usage charge. Now let's talk about some research units related to EUC Service Desk. In addition to the Central Campus Remote and Hardware Service Charge RUs, there are 3 additional support RUs that are based off EUC devices. These RUs should closely match the total of all EUC support volumes and are based on the total number of active devices. That's measured by the status of 120 active in Maximo. But remember, we say closely matched because inventory is a living and breathing thing that constantly changes. The exact match between the RUs and the EUC volumes depends on when the refresh occurred, when Maximo gets updated, etc. GETS EUC devices in the storage closet that are listed in Maximo as 150 idle will incur the hardware service charge, but not these support RUs. If you have devices that are not being used, but held in your inventory, it is important to put these devices in 150 idle status to stop the EUC support charges and the related research unit charges listed on this slide. The hardware service charges will continue to be billed as long as you have possession of the device. EUC status changes by the agencies are executed through order now. There are no IMAC charges for a status change. Sometimes the agencies tell us that they can't really budget for GETS charges because the costs are variable and they're moving. Actually, we found that GETS charges have been stable over time. This slide shows that for the most part, end-user computing resource units have remained stable over time. There is one outlier, though. You can see the bold line there, and it's for tablets. That's because we have fewer tablets in service today than we did in the past. As agencies have converted tablet users to laptops, the unit volume has decreased tremendously, and they have become more expensive per unit. GTA has mechanisms in the contract with our vendors to address these pricing issues, and if you look at your April invoice, you'll see the central campus tablet PCRU has been brought down to a normal level. We are constantly monitoring these and other rates and negotiating with our vendors to maintain low, competitive pricing. So let's look at a recap of EUC and Service Desk Resource Units. An agency can have up to 5 separate RU charges for each EUC device. Hardware service charges are based on the number of GETS EUC devices, excluding legacy and purchase, in the possession of an agency. Central campus and remote RUs are based on the agency's total number of active EUC devices. Authorized device, LAN-attached device, and LAN port RUs are based on the number of EUC devices listed as active and or connected in Maximo. So, management of EUC and service desk towers is directly related to the number of agencies' EUC devices, active idle status, and connection to the network. Most devices are listed as connected in Maximo, and this is the default. There are only a few devices that are not connected, such as devices in training rooms or DDS testing devices. Now that you understand the towers and their charges, let's talk specifically about how the agency can change and manage EUC costs. So managing EUC consumption, you have IMAX to install, move, add, or change the device in your environment. All requests are submitted through the Service Catalog Order Now under PC, Equipment Service, and IMAC, or the Asset Management Only headings. If you have 1 to 9 devices, it may generate 1 IMAC charge per device per agency. If you have more than 10 devices regarding PC equipment service, it's going to require an RFS, a request for a solution, and then a custom solution proposal, CSP, is provided to the agency. There is a discount on IMAX when you're dealing with 10 or more devices in an RFS. It's important to note that under the asset management only headings, when you're changing status, that you don't have a limit of up to 9 or over 10. You can up to do 200 devices through the asset management only heading. Agencies need to follow the IMAC process to ensure their invoices are correct. It's important to follow this process and not to perform your own moves. Any change to an EUC device is called an IMAC. The acronym includes install, moves, adds, and changes, but doesn't have an R for remove. That's included in the C for change. In GETS, we distinguish between hard and soft IMACs, and this is a difference that is important for an agency as it controls costs. Hard IMACs incur charges because a desk site visit is required. Examples may include installing software, installing additional RAM, or adding a device like a scanner. Soft IMACs are done remotely and do not incur charges. Examples include changing asset data, a DDM push, or software install. So let's look at best practices in consumption management. I'm sure that the last few slides have illustrated that EUC consumption is directly related to device count, active idle status, and connection. In the GETS model, the agency owns consumption management. For the month of June, GTA has negotiated with IBM to waive IMAC charges for turning in GETS end-user computing devices. Devices stockpiled in closets and cubes can be turned in. The CRMs will walk you through the process and let you know what information is necessary to take advantage of this offer. The hard drives will be wiped as part of the process. But back to the agency owning consumption management. Reconciliation is a key role for the agency to control EUC charges. Agencies must first understand the EUC RUs they are being billed and complete a three-way match. For example, an agency should compare its list of employees in PeopleSoft against its data in Maximo against the invoice it receives from GTA. The agency's asset management lead performs these functions. GTA offers regular training for these individuals. The addendum to this presentation provides a list of key reports to assist with this reconciliation and screenshots of GSmart showing how to access. Please be aware that some are listed in GSmart and some are produced in GSmart Analytics. We are slowly moving all the reports to GSmart Analytics, where the reports are produced by the Cognos engine. Here are a few more things the agency does when managing EUC consumption. They need to plan ahead. Does it make more sense to save up a few moves and then make an RFS and get a discount on the IMAX? Are you going to be able to save money if you wait to do a refresh according to the refresh schedule, or move ahead of it? The agency forecasted needs. You want to get rid of redundant devices or unused things. Obviously, those are costing you money. And then match the EUC device to the worker's function. At the end of the day, does an employee need 2 computing devices? If they don't, turn one in and you can save those related charges. And do you need to go premium in your choices when a regular standard device is sufficient? So now let's take a moment to look at how to address discrepancies in your invoice. If you're looking at your invoice detail and see a room is wrong for an asset, a cost center is incorrect, the username or the user ID is wrong, if any of these details are wrong, your asset manager can go into Order Now and use the Change an Attribute to an Existing Asset product to request the necessary change. Now these are just details to the assets and generally would not constitute a dispute. It would be a change that the agency would need to make to the detail. Also, once you complete your own reconciliation, you may see that something is billed incorrectly, like an asset ID that doesn't match your records, or a cost center that belongs to another agency, or a device that belongs to another agency. At that point is when you file a dispute. In order to submit a formal dispute, the agency must send an email to chargebackadmin@gta.ga.gov with the required documentation. For EUC, the required documentation is the rationale for filing the dispute, the resource units in question, the asset tag number for those units, the cost center, the date range, the invoice month in question, or month. If applicable, you've got your change request via RFS number, you've got your Order Now number or surplus property transfer form, and then of course contact information so we can get back to you. In the end, if you are consuming an asset, then you would be billed for the asset. Incorrect detail does not constitute dispute, like I said before. So the agency owns consumption management for the services it receives through GETS. GTA also has several important functions for end-user computing in the service desk. Here are some of the services we provide on your behalf every day. These services provide transparency into spending and empower and enable you to perform your consumption management responsibilities. Empowering agencies with knowledge and tools, we have the ongoing education for agency asset management leads, coordinators, and invoice reviewers. There's the Asset Management Handbook that is available either through online download or through DVD. You can acquire your CRM for that. And there's the Asset Management Toolkit that is targeted to be available in October of 2013. That will help the agencies better interface with GTA's tools and also allow your data to interface with our data. So to summarize, an end-user computing device can have up to 5 different resource units. Reduction in EUC devices lowers costs. The agency owns consumption management. GTA is here to help. Be sure to review the addendum. We have listed several key reports to help your staff with consumption management. And here is a preview of what's ahead. Our next topic is servers, as I mentioned before. Our learning objectives would be to better understand your GET server services, that you'd understand the resource units related to servers, and how to leverage the processing tool to better manage it. And that'll be June 27th. So please complete your learning objectives evaluation if you're reviewing this with CRM today. And